Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. We continue to read in Sahih Muslim. Last time we had discussed the hadith, the multiple hadiths that talk about when rain came overnight. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked to the Sahaba after the morning salah and mentioned to them that Allah said that when a blessing like this comes to earth, to the servants of Allah, some people would say this blessing came to us because of the mercy of Allah and by His grace. And some other people would relate such events and such blessings to certain superstitions, such as connecting these events with certain positions of certain planets, or the coming and the rise of certain planets, or the fall of other planets, or the coming of a certain meteor. And some people would actually predict things like this in the future, such as rain or misfortune or fortune that may happen to certain people based on the position of planets and their rise and their descent. This is what's called astrology, different from astronomy. Astronomy is a science, but astrology is to try to link the events that happen in the lives of people, which are by the decree of Allah, to these kind of changes in heavens. If there's something that could be scientifically linked very clearly, based on evidence, that certain changes in the environment really lead to certain things, such as changes in pressure and changes in wind direction, things like this. And you say, when you're talking scientifically, you can say we're predicting rain because of this and that is fine. Or you can say the temperature went down because of this cold front and temperature changes and all this, that is fine. But still, you're just talking about the mechanism so as to be able to predict. But eventually, you have to always know that the only doer for all these events is Allah. There's a sequence of events that we know, everybody knows about. We know, for instance, that a human being is created in certain steps in the mother's womb, and then for him to become an adult, he has to pass through all these stages, and there's so many things involved that from the doing of other human beings, his parents, to allow him to reach this level. But yes, we know all these things, but who is the ultimate creator? Who is the only creator of the parents and of the child and of the provisions that led to him reach this? It's Allah. But to link things like this, such as rain fall or good weather, to something that has no scientific link, to any kind of event that has no established scientific link, and attribute these events solely to this matter or to this event, that is of course a shirk, and it's being ungrateful to Allah. This is basically what we read last time, and that's why Allah says وَتَجْعَلُونَ رِزْقَكُمْ أَنَّكُمْ تُكَذِّبُونَ, because the Prophet ﷺ recited this verse after he mentioned that, which means that you, instead of responding to this blessing from Allah by giving thanks and gratitude, you respond to these blessings by offering ingratitude and disbelief. تَجْعَلُونَ رِزْقَكُمْ, which means you make shukra rizqikum, your thanks that you're giving, instead of giving the real thanks, you're giving disbelief and rejection. This is the meaning of تَجْعَلُونَ رِزْقَكُمْ أَنَّكُمْ تُكَذِّبُونَ. I hope that makes it clear. It's clarification from last. The next few hadith are very clear. We don't have to talk much about them. I'm just going to read them. This next four maybe hadith. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن أنس آية المنافق بغض الأنصار وآية المؤمن حب الأنصار. Anas narrates that the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم says the sign of a hypocrite is to dislike and hate the Ansar. Ansar are the people of Medina who supported the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, and the Sahaba when they migrated to them. Ansar, the supporters. He says a hypocrite One of the signs of the hypocrite is he dislikes these people, while a believer always loves these people for the service they have offered to this deen, to this religion, to the messenger, to the book of Allah. They sacrificed, they spread the deen, all these things. Okay, they protected the deen. So no real believer can ever hate the Ansar. If somebody hates the Ansar, it's a sign of hypocrisy. You follow? The other narration, حب الأنصار آية الإيمان وبغضهم آية النفاق. Same thing. The sign of belief is loving the Ansar, and the sign of hypocrisy is hating the Ansar. Another hadith. لا يحبهم إلا مؤمن. Only a believer would love them. لا يبغضهم إلا منافق. Only a hypocrite would hate them. من أحبهم أحبه الله. Whoever loves the Ansar, Allah would love him. ومن أبغضهم أبغضه الله. Whoever hates the Ansar, Allah would hate them. Also another hadith. لا يبغض الأنصار رجل يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر. You cannot find a man who believes in Allah and the last day who would hate the Ansar, the supporters of the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, his disciples, his companions. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يبغض الأنصار رجل يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر. Same meaning. So all these hadith are about Ansar. And that is why we say that if certain Muslim sects dislike or hate any of the Ansar, it's a sign of their hypocrisy. And who are a better group of the early Muslims, the Ansar or the Muhajirin? What would be your answer? Who are better, the Ansar or Muhajirin? Muhajirin are definitely better. Their sacrifice was more. They sacrificed even more than the Ansar. They are the ones and they were earlier in Islam with the messenger from Mecca, and they migrated, they left their homes. So the Muhajirin were the Muhajirin from Quraysh are known to be higher in ranking than the Ansar. And if you look at all the Khulafa al-Rashideen are from the Muhajirin. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, all of them from Muhajirin. And even the people who came after, Bani Umayyah. Umayyah is also a tribe from Quraysh as well, a clan from Quraysh as well. So, and even when they sat together to consult with each other after the death of Prophet ﷺ, everybody knew that the Khalifa has to be from the Muhajirin, from the people who migrated. Now, if these ahadith are mentioned about Ansar, we can extend the same meaning and even more to the Muhajirin, definitely, no question. And that is why, if we find any Muslim or any sect who, as part of their belief, is to hate certain Sahaba, or discredit them, or to curse them, or to level any kind of accusation to them, these are all signs that these are all hypocrites, unless they are maybe juhal, maybe they are ignorant. If it's the general masses, we can teach them such a hadith that you are falling into a great problem if you actually commit that. I will finish with this other hadith, which it's very important. This next hadith is narrated by somebody called Ali ibn Thabit عن زر ibn حبيش قال علي ibn Abi Talib said, Ali ibn Abi Talib said, والذي فلق الحبة وبرأ النسمة إنه لعهد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إلي ألا يحبني إلا مؤمن ولا يبغضني إلا منافق. He said that Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu said that by the one who split the seed in two halves, and by the one who creates the souls, the promise or the virtue that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given me, meaning to Ali, that only a believer would love me and only a hypocrite would hate me. Now, this hadith, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of Muslim scholars consider it authentic in its chain of narration. But if you look at the statement itself, it does raise some questions. Because whenever you find the hadith that talks about a specific Sahaba that around which there was lots of political conflict, you have to start questioning, is this hadith authentic or not? When you find a hadith, for instance, saying bad things about Muawiyah, you have to wait a bit and try to scrutinize these hadiths, because there was a big conflict happening between the supporters of Ali ibn Abi Talib and the supporters of Muawiyah. And also Uthman, there was lots of conflict happening, and Bani Umayyah and so on. So whenever we come to these hadiths specifically, we have to be very careful. Now this hadith is narrated by Ali ibn Abi Talib alone, and the chain of narration goes to a man called Al-A'mash. Al-A'mash, this man is a big scholar, but at the same time, he was accused of being one of the Shia. But he's a Sunni scholar, but he did have some inclination to the Shia as well. And so people of Sunnah in the early days used to accept taking hadith from Shia for a reason, because the tashayyu at the time was not like how extreme it is nowadays. If somebody was called a Shia at the time, it was somebody who preferred Ali ibn Abi Talib over Muawiyah, for instance, and thought that he was the more lawful ruler than Muawiyah. So it was more of a political inclination, nothing religious to it. Nothing religious to it. He just felt he's more worthy of the Khilafah, and the other people thought this man is more worthy of the Khilafah. But it had nothing to do with the 12 Imams and giving them, the authority to give whatever fatwa they want, to go against the Quran, go against the Sunnah, as if what they're saying is infallible, coming like a revelation directly from Allah. This was not present at the time. Okay, so that's why you will find in the books and amongst the scholars of Sunnah, some people, they used to say about them, كان فيه شيء من التشيع. He had some Shia inclination, which means that he was politically inclined to Ali. So what's the problem? He's a scholar, he's a good man. Okay, that's number one. Number two, the A'mash had another problem, which is something called tadlis. Tadlis means sometimes he doesn't clearly state who he got the hadith from. And that is a problem, because if somebody had this kind of tendency, instead of being very accurate and very clear to us who he got the hadith from, rather than making it vague, when he says an fulan, it is said that this man said such and such. If he says an instead of akhbarana or haddathana, akhbarana or akhbarani means I heard him say it. Haddathana, I heard him talk to us. But if you say an, means that according to Munir, according to Abdullah, did you hear it from him or not? So he had this kind of problem, and when they scrutinized his hadith, they found that sometimes he fell or he committed tadlis. There are some scholars, I had to look into the hadith, because immediately when I read it, I felt there was something about it. Because why single out Ali ibn Abi Talib out of all the Sahaba to say that who loves me is a believer and who hates me is a hypocrite, unless there's some background to this? Because Abu Bakr we know is better than Ali ibn Abi Talib. Umar we know is better than Ali ibn Abi Talib. Or actually every believer has to be loved anyhow. لا تؤمنوا حتى تحابوا. We read this hadith before. You cannot be believers unless you love each other. So we love each other anyhow as believers, and we love the stronger believers like the Ansar and Muhajirin in general more than than the other believers. And we love the ones that were closest to the Messenger ﷺ, such as Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, wa Ali, more than the other believers. So just keep it general like this, but to make this hadith like, oh, if you love Ali, we love Ali actually. So actually this hadith applies to us as people of Sunnah. We love Ali, we love Uthman, we love, so. But maybe, there's a possibility this hadith was invented by somebody in support of tashayyu', in support of Shia. And always be very clear about any hadiths that come in the context of political. Also, you have to be very leery about a hadith that give virtue to certain towns or certain people or certain places. You have to scrutinize these hadiths, because if this hadith was narrated by multiple people, maybe yes. But since it goes through one man, and this man had a problem with his way of narrating, and he had also inclination to Shia, I personally feel this hadith is weak and possibly fabricated, but it is in Sahih Muslim, and the vast majority of scholars consider it as authentic. Just want to let you know. Okay.